окажусь, это такие же, как я, несчастных, замученных. Им не на что больше надеяться. А я могу, понимаете, я могу им помочь. Никто им помочь не может, а я гнида могу. Я честно плакать на том, что могу им помочь. В этом все. Ничего не хочу.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Let's Take 5, the podcast where we look at one of the greats of cinema and discuss their excellence and range. My name is Eric Martindale.
I'm Austin Luger.
And today we are continuing with our Andrei Tarkovsky 5. The previous films we covered are Ivan's Childhood, Andrei Rublev, Solaris. Today we'll be covering The Mirror, and after this we'll be talking about Stalker. Now, today we're going to be talking about The Mirror. You may have noticed in my introduction I was talking a little slower. There's a good reason for that, because I'm trying to figure out how to fill time about a movie that I have absolutely no idea what I just saw. So, let's begin. This is a movie about, it's a semi-autobiographical film about Andrei Tarkovsky. He shopped this movie around for a lot of places since the 60s trying to get it financed and made, which was difficult for Tarkovsky to do in Russia at this time. Anyway, and partly why eventually he left Russia so he could, make movies. So he's having trouble getting it shopped around, partly probably due to the script. The script basically is a non-linear film that follows a kid at three different stages in his life, essentially. One is him as a child living at his grandfather's house. Another one is him in a dreamlike sequence or state. And the final one is, I say final one, I don't know why I'm doing that, I'm just going chronologically, the way life goes, is him post-World War II. And getting back to the chronological portion of this movie does not go in chronological order. It's a film that is broken up in several pieces and will often change perspectives and time and space with different characters into dreamland, out of dreamland, memories. Sometimes they're memories, sometimes they're happening right now. And it'll change without ever really being prompted to in such a way that it is difficult to ascertain what exactly we are watching and why we are watching, and when we are watching, I think, is appropriate as well. The main character in this film is oddly not the character that the biography is about. The main character of this film is his mother, who's played by the same actress that also in the future plays his wife. She's quite good in this film. Mm-hmm. It's a very, 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 very pretty movie. Mm-hmm. But I have absolutely no clue why it was made. I don't know what it's about, really. Yeah, we'll lead in with that.
We're 3 minutes in.
I actually think that I kind of summarized that movie pretty well, considering.
That was fantastic, I thought. So, this to me is an overdone metaphor and criticism, but this to me had the feel of walking through a museum, and all of this is Tarkovsky's art. And there are just moments where I'll walk into a room and see these collection of images and go, that's really impressive. Then walk into the room and feel a different thing. That's what this whole film felt like to me. I also did not have a clear thesis because I felt I started to get it about halfway through and then didn't have time to restart the film or rewatch the whole film. But there are just moments where I can see why he made this, because this is a man who made only a few films, but as we've already seen, he really kind of breaks the boundaries of kind of what a film can be with each one of them. He's really ambitious with this. And this is going for, by far his most non-linear, in that it's the only one that's not linear that we covered. Solaris barely, but it's still linear within watching a flashback. Mm-hmm. This is... It seems to be just driven by memory and emotion, and it uses poetry in the same kind of non-structural, structural elements. So I would keep getting different things at different moments, but it still, as a whole, leaves me colder than the other ones because it feels still incomprehensible in a way. Mm-hmm. But every piece of the puzzle is really good.
Yes. But there's no linear flow through. You don't. It has the feelings of a free thought, just sort of spewing out, and
which I think that he was trying to accomplish, because he was. That could be done in poetry. That's just so rarely done in cinema without being horribly pretentious.
Well, so that's the
Yeah.
You hit the that's the magic word.
Yep.
So the movie kind of unfolds like a giant ant farm of where it's kind of going and where it is, and each individual piece that we arrive at, like a museum, like we said, we can look at this part and say, I feel something. And this happened to me several times throughout seeing the film. I can look at this image and think something and come away with something, but I can't look at the whole and say that. And what's really weird about that is I knew that was the way it was like 25, 30 minutes into the movie. It didn't take long for me to realize, oh God, oh God. And I had seen parts of this movie before. I know you'd seen it before. I
think I tried it before.
Yeah.
I just remember watching, like, this is really pretty. I'm not getting this. And if I finished it, I don't remember finishing it.
It's not like one of the more popular Tarkovsky films. I mean, like
a guy who has 9 films.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, there's 4 definitively you like almost have to do on this 5, and The Mirror is the one that's sort of out. I think of that group. But there were some scenes in particular that I did think were quite profound and quite beautiful. And I don't know if this was you had felt this similar at all, or felt this way at all. The scene with the doctor and her sitting on the fence is like astoundingly beautiful.
I really like that one.
Yeah,
that's in my list.
Yeah, she's on the fence. She's smoking a cigarette. He talks about it, and this is where you really get these feelings of like, oh, childhood memories sort of falling out. He says, when you saw a figure in the distance come around the hay bale or whatever, if it turns right and towards the house, then we know it's Dad. If it keeps going that direction, it fades away into eternity and is never seen again. And this person comes up, but it's not Dad. It's this doctor who's sort of lost his way. Again, this is freaking Tarkovsky's favorite actor. He's literally in the last 4 films we cover here. And he shows up and they share a moment together, just a human moment, and it's shot in completely natural light. It's so beautiful. It's like astoundingly beautiful. I think I already said that. And they just talk about life and nature and whatever. And then he walks away. This huge gust of wind comes across the field, and he stares back at her, and there's clearly a tinge of like, does he come back? And if he comes back, is her whole life different? There is a proverbial fork in the road, literally here and figuratively. And then he keeps walking on his way. That scene was brilliant.
I really like that scene, and that was just like one of the longer scenes of like a real like point to it.
Yeah, that actually had a story like contained in it, and then ultimately the rest of it is cold because it is Tarkovsky's art. It's probably not cold to Tarkovsky. It's probably very warm.
It's probably largely about his father as well.
Exactly, who reads the voiceover in the film. So yeah.
Well, there were some curious things because like this is the one that like the other films of his, aside from Solaris being accidentally reminding me of 2001 because he didn't see it. This one reminded me of other directors in Europe, especially like some French directors, because it had some like Truffaut and Godard elements to it, and in a way that like those were embracing kind of the warmer elements to it, and also Ingmar Bergman,
definitely for sure,
especially in the sequence when the child scenes, because the way that Tarkovsky shot that house, I mean, he uses the natural lighting in a way that I just assume he asked God to put the sun there. Like, I don't know. It's so perfect.
Or the wind.
It's insane. Yeah. But also, like, just the way you can, like, the quality was so good on Filmstruck. You could just, like, see the walls and whatnot. It would become, like, the most inviting house, and then in the next second, it's just, like, a haunted place of, like, no love and just, like, cold discomfort. It's all been, like... And much like how he did the sequence I talked too much about, the driving scene from Solaris. Like, it's just like he's not using obvious camera tricks. He's just showing in a way that like it lingers and you change your mind about it in a way that he's somehow orchestrating. I really enjoyed seeing those sequences. What else I got here?
Well, okay, so
like, I was going to need some more scenes I like.
Okay, so like an attempt to kind of get at what's happening in the film, we see a transformation with his and this is just me pulling my own stream of consciousness as well. So, like, this is what I felt when I watched it. Could be completely off base. So, he has an idealistic view of his mother, who raised them as children. And I assume I'm literally when I say him, I'm referring to the main character, but I'm referring to this pseudo Tarkovsky character.
Yes.
So he idolizes her. He thinks she was great. She resents the children because she has to raise the children completely on her own while the father went off to fight a war. And she has to protect the children throughout this whole time. And he feels such a way about her that when he grows up, he literally marries a woman that either one of two things is happening here. One, she either looks exactly like his mother, or when he sees her, he sees his mother. But much like that relationship he has with his mother that is estranged as well, his marriage falls apart with this woman. They raise kids together that he's cold and distant to. And, he sees his father as sort of this, like, dying poet reading poetry. And in the end, he dies. He is dying of some disease we don't know what's going on. And so it's basically one big circle. And I typically love movies that are reciprocal like that. I mean, some of the greatest films all time are movies that come full circle. The Godfather. But this, because of the way the story is told and because it's not in English, this is just me thinking that's what happened? Yes. I mean, do you think I'm close?
No idea. I'm so hope for this movie, and I'm rarely like that. I was more prepared for Mojo Verdu. Mm-hmm. And I didn't rewatch the last 20 minutes of that movie. This is something that, like, I'm glad we're doing this episode because I really want to have a conversation for those who've studied Tarkovsky and, like, can help us further appreciate this, because this isn't a case where, like, Hitchcock made Torn Curtain and Torn Curtain just sucks. This is one of the masters of cinema making a really beautiful 100-minute film that means a lot, but he's going for something that's, like, still over our heads, it feels like, 30 years later.
Yeah, that's sort of the problem here, I think, is that, you're talking about a Russian filmmaker, you're talking about Andrei Tarkovsky, you're talking about the artsy movies he's made, and you said pretentiousness earlier. There's really no way to talk about his movies in general without being pretentious, because they're so kind of lofty. It's like, oh, I like Tarkovsky, let's talk about Solaris, let's talk about Stalker. Oh, you think that's a great movie? See Andrei Rublev. Mm-hmm. But this movie literally comes off as pretentious because I can't actually follow it. Mm-hmm.
Did you get angry?
Well, yeah, a little bit. Let me explain why. Because the language is so heightened that it almost seems like it's intentionally throwing barriers in front of you to make it, like, people will respond in such a way in this film, and it could just be a translation thing, but they'll respond such a way in this film that I'll go, that doesn't even come close to answering what he just said. Like, it's like, oh, do you think I should marry that guy? Yesterday, but not today. What? Mm-hmm. And now they're talking about their son. Like, what? Wait a minute, what about that big important question we asked 5 seconds ago? And that was what made it incomprehensible to me, and pretentious to me, just because, okay, here's when it becomes pretentious. If someone comes up to me and tells me that The Mirror is Tarkovsky's best film, that's when I'll go, oh.
Or their favorite film.
Yeah, I'll be like, okay, then Samuel Beckett's your favorite playwright, and you have a favorite font. Mm-hmm. and like it's just that's too much for me. It was all too much.
The worst answer I ever heard for someone answering their favorite film, which is intentionally as a stupid phrase, everyone has their own opinion. This guy was wrong, because he was giving a lecture to high school students, and I was in high school, and he was a screenwriter for, like, a Lifetime film. I don't know who he was, but he kept getting, like, annoyed at me because he would, like, present a clip like, who's seen the Palm Beach Story? I would raise my hand. He, like, would glare at me, not like, hey, cool, you've seen this You've seen TCM as well. But someone asked him what his favorite film was, and he said, Greed. Greed is the 1923 silent film that is largely missing because there was I believe a 10-hour cut, then it was turned into a 4-hour cut, and then turned into a 2-hour cut. The 2-hour cut exists, but TCM, through some still photographs, have recreated the 4-hour cut, and that's his favorite film.
Yes, you're an asshole.
And I was like, I actually stayed up one night in high school before I had DVR and recorded on tape the Greed, but fuck you, man. Anyway, that's it. The Mirror.
You could have said Fight Club. No,
Yeah, then I would just you're a douche. I got it.
Yeah,
and move on. But with this movie, I really never got. I think I got really into the mood that Tarkovsky was making. This nonlinear poetry thing, this museum piece, perhaps. I only got frustrated when I remembered that later today I have to talk about this on a podcast.
Yeah.
I just enjoyed watching this film, and it's a film that once it ended, I think I will enjoy revisiting throughout my life because I think I'll get more out of it. I think I will understand some more of his visual metaphors and see how it ties into a life or this life. Because it has some different emotions that we haven't really not seen from Tarkovsky. There's a little bit of sass in this film.
Okay, explain that.
One of the sequences that really just kind of stuck with me was one of the sequences that dealt with war. And it might have actually been a newsreel where he did film this.
There were some newsreel stuff.
Yeah, and it was them going through the water, and they had the boat, and it was holding the really impressive equipment and whatnot. But it was going in slow motion, it seemed like. I mean, they're already having to walk through wades, the wades in the water. But it was even slower than that, and it felt like a war photograph of putting the flag on Iwo Jima. Except it's so long, it also just started to feel silly. They're just in the water trying to get this tank part across, and then it shows the next shot, and there's just a horizon. There's just water forever.
Yeah,
and I go this felt like more of a satirical bent that we just not really have seen from him before. Aside from possibly, and I'm not even sure this is way intended, of when the man in the balloon is the one who can appreciate the art in Andrei Rublev.
Yeah. Well, speaking of man in balloons, there's some badass shots of man in balloons in this.
He loves balloons.
Those guys had a crazy life.
Yeah. What's up with the first scene?
Oh, okay. So, nothing. It's a psychiatrist helping a stutterer, and the kid. I don't know which kid that was that turned on that TV. I don't know if it was his son in the future or him as a kid. It's got to be his son in the future, right? Because TV's...
Typically in a podcast, I would interrupt my host and ask him to explain the scene, but can't.
No, I mean, it doesn't affect the movie. There's a lot...
You're watching black and white footage of someone getting help, then he's...
Well, hold on.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Someone turns a TV on that has black and white footage.
Yes.
A kid does that.
Yes.
I only saw the movie once, I can't remember who it was. And he turns it on, and then you see that. So go ahead now.
Yeah, and so you see the psychiatrist asking this guy questions, he asks the questions, and then you realize it's about fixing the stuttering, and then it's aggressively fixing the stuttering, stand here, do this. But it was very
some type of almost hypnosis.
A bit, yeah. But I couldn't have a hypnosis, or he just being very obedient.
But the kid was an incredible actor that played the stammerer, though.
Mm-hmm.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
I mean that is one really neat trend, not just in The Mirror, but in all the movies. There does come some difficulty with the language barrier as far as evaluating performances, but the acting in this movie is freaking great. In particular, Margarita Terkova, who plays the mom and the wife in the future, she's incredible, and it's not just because she looks like Meryl Streep.
No,
she's awesome. She plays sadness, resentment, various parts of the spectrum, emotional wise, that I'm always able to understand what she's trying to emote in every given scene, which is impressive because we don't speak the same language.
Right.
And because this dialogue doesn't really make sense. So, like, both of these things are both, but were very impressive, including her, because she had to deal with those two obstacles. Also, I had a crush on her.
Yeah, that's okay.
What are we going to talk about for the next few minutes?
I'm out of all the scenes I wanted to cover.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is basically where I sort of stand as far as, like, where I am on this movie. I don't have too much to say about it.
This will balance out our average time. So we try to hit 30 minutes, but since we've hit 40, 20-minute ones will help with that average, I guess.
Yeah, so you want to take us out of here?
Yeah. I just want to say, like, I like this movie.
I like this movie too, but I
insane.
I just don't have much to say about it. It's just not very personal to me.
It's one that I just felt unprepared for, and I'm very sorry to our audience.
And it feels really cold, and I just don't understand. No, you're not unprepared for it.
No,
like, when this movie was released, it was very divisive because people didn't understand what was going on here.
I feel though it's kind of the duty of a critic to kind of come in with at least your thesis on why you felt the way you did. I feel I am lacking in this episode, but I think it's a film that I am going to hopefully at least encourage people to watch or encourage people to help me understand it.
Well, it's episode 74, so maybe we're
bound to go down.
Tarkovsky, you took us down.
Yeah, there we go. But thank you all for listening. Weird that you did, and we're grateful. If you have thoughts on The Mirror, and we hope that you do, please go to theartofmoral.com, which is also, as we acknowledge, a very pretentious website title. And you can let us know what you think, because there's an episode page for every one of our episodes, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. But if you are shy, you can always email us at letstake5@theartofmore.com. Follow us on Twitter at the Immortals Pod. That is a Twitter and website shared by the other podcasts on the channel, which include The Immortals, where myself and 4 others review the 1001 movies, albums, food, songs, children's books, and TV shows that you must consume before you die. This week, we just had a very short episode where we just did a bit of a catch-up, where Sarah talked about the Battle of Algiers and Pedro talked about Return of the Jedi, and talked about other shows I've been watching. We'll be back to the full episode next week.
I assume Pedro liked Return of the Jedi?
I imagine.
Okay.
I haven't recorded it. But it's out now. And also, Ad Absurdum is coming up to the end of September here, so they are finishing up their month of covering Westworld with their 1 episode. Misled you there. But they'll be back, I believe, next week or so with Inception, which I'm very excited to hear. And we'll be back next week with Stalker, which I am very excited to watch.
I'll have a lot to say about that movie.
I have not rewatched it. I have pretty much no memory of it, so I'm very excited about this. And also work on you.
Constant Diversion, that's my YouTube channel. You can check me out on there. Pretty soon we'll have... we started working officially on the Chrono Trigger video. So.
And I am excited because I need more of an excuse to play that besides the extent of our friendship, you saying every week to play this game, because it's your favorite game of all time.
It would be.
Yes. So, also, Adam Lord, Genius did the song at the beginning. It's found at songsbyalord.com. That's it for this week. Thank you all for listening. I'm Austin Luger.
I'm Eric Martindale.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.